Kakadosh Boker Tov, Masechet Betzah Daf 23A1. So we were talking about yesterday when we were finishing the daf. We were talking about that Rav Yehuda comes and he says that to place on besamim, which is spices, on top of a gachelet, on top of coals, is going to be a asur. Why? Because of mechabeh and mav'id. Okay, you're turning it off and putting it on. Agabe cheres, but if it's going to be on earthenware, it's going to be mutar. Right? Why? Because there's no kibui, and even though there's going to be a mav'id is b'shinui. So therefore, since it was done b'shinui, it's going to be permitted. The Rabba comes and says, even on earthenware, it's also going to be asur because of molid recha. Molid recha means you're not allowed to put a smell into something new. So here, for example, that's what we were speaking about yesterday to do with, are you allowed to put perfume on clothing? So he said you're not allowed to put perfume on clothing on Yom Tov or Shabbat. It has to be on the skin, not on the clothing. You're not allowed to put perfume on clothing. Yeah, but it's molid recha. You're making a smell, so you're not allowed. Okay? Now this is where we're starting today. Second line. Rabba Rav Yosef Damar Tavayu, Rabba Rav Yosef both said, Sachufe kasa shirai biyom atava. Right? Lechapot kos shel bosem. On top of shiraim. That means if you're going to have a cup of besamim, yeah, bosem, and you come and you're going to pour it, right, on top of meshi, on top of silk on Yom Tov, to give it a good smell, asur is going to be asur. My time, what's reasoning? Mishum de kamoli drecha, but you're putting a good smell into the clothing. So ask the Gemara, umayshna molelo. What's the difference between molel? If you remember, we spoke about, right, molelo was that you're going to be megalgel something, and you put the besamim, whether it's in your fingers or other things, and then you're allowed to smell it. Kotmo, or you could cut it with the tip of your hand, and you're allowed to smell it. And so the Gemara, hatam recha miyaita, there it already has a smell. But you're just adding on to the smell. Meaning, if you have a besamim, and you know many times you do like this in the besamim, and then you smell it, it already had a smell. You're adding on to the smell. Or you cut it, and once cutting it, now it has a fresh smell, right? But it had a smell, but you're adding on to the smell. That's going to be permitted. Here, you're making a new reach. Since you're making a new reach, it's going to be a sur. So you're allowed to add on to the reach that it already has the besamim, but you're not allowed to make a new reach. Okay? Rava comes and he says, Aga begachelet, Nami, on the gachelet also it's going to be permitted. Needed to have a bisra gumne. Just like you're allowed to put fresh meat onto roast on Yom Tov, which means that even though it has chavaran kibui, right, when you're making the good smell, right, but since it's ochel nefesh, it's permitted, right? So too the same thing applies to ishum perot. You're going to smoke fruits, right? It's going to be permitted because it's ochel nefesh. Anything which is done for food, you're allowed to do without any problem. Okay? Fine. Dara shav gavia mi bekati. Right, comes Rav Avia and he's doresh from the place of Bekati, apitcha de Resh Kaluta, the entrance of Resh Kaluta, ketura share. He wants to say over here, ketura is going to be permitted. Now, what is ketura? He says ketura is permitted. What's ketura? Amalu Ameimad, my ketura. What is ketura? Ketura bidei. Right, if he says, if the kavanah is you're allowed to make folds in the clothing, right? So basically, they used to make like a fold, like a hems and folds in the clothing. Maase umanu. That's a maase uman. You're not allowed to do that in Yom Tov, right? So how do you say that ketura is going to be permitted? Ketura literally means to tie something together, right? Right? Kashur, right? L'kshor, huh? Like a hem. It's called a hem, right? So he says maase umanu. If you're going to tell me ketura is lashen perot, so a ketura is milashon ketura like ketoret, right? Which is being ashan, male ashan kochu. Right, like ketura of Avraham Avinu. It's called ketura because maaseh keketoret. So either ketura is milashon kshura, tied together, or ketura milashon fire, ashan. So he says over here, so if you're going to tell me lashen perot, it's a sur. Why? It's going to be mechabe. So how did you say it's going to be mutar? So Amalei Rashi comes and says leolam leashen. Really, we're talking about lashen perot. But we're talking about you're putting basar on gechalim. Ika de amri da those that say, Amalu Ameimar, Ameimar comes and he says, my ketura, what is ketura? Ketura biyadem aseh umanu v'ila ashen asur dekamon lirecha. So basically here, the le'ashen was because of mechabe or was because of molid recha. You understand? That's the difference. That means what is it exactly? Is it because of le'ashen or kamon gamizat ika damre? The ika damre says that the reason for le'asor le'ashen, according to the first ika damre, was because you're being mechabeh. According to the second ikadamne, it's because you're kamoli dreicha. Okay? So Amar Ravashi comes and he says, Ana amrita nihale. Yeah, I said it in front. Yeah, Ana amrita nihale, I said it in front. And I said, and I said in front of a great person, Leolam le'ashen, no, really be'emet, it's le'ashen. Because that means you're doing something of food. Le'ashen perot. So why is it mutar? It should be either be asu because of mechabeh or because of molidrecha. And so the Gemara, it's like basar and the khalif. That is, even though you are molidreach in the pechamim now has a good smell from the good meat. The meat, you have a good aroma. Yeah, it's still going to be permitted. Why? So it's going to be permitted. So we're continuing, and it says over here like this. We had the two dots. The two dots says right before the Mishnah, you could do the gedim mikulas. Remember, on the night of Pesach, you could come, you tie the gedi together, and you come and you start roasting it. And the Chachamim said that it's going to be a sur. Tanya, we learned to the right side. Yosef Omer Yosef says, Todos ish romi, kinhiget bnei romi lechol gedim mikulas b'lepsachim. Do you know that Todos ish romi, he made the minhag by all the Jews, right, bnei romi, to eat gedim mikulas on the night of Pesach, just like Rabbi Gamliel. Shalchu lehu lei, so they sent in the rabbis, ilmale todos hu atay. If it wasn't for the fact that you are todos and you're a very big chacham gadol, right, v'nichbad, ozranu alecha nidui, we would have put you in nidui, excommunication. Shata ma'achil b'nei Yisrael kochim b'chutz, because you come and you're giving them kochim outside. How could it be that you're giving them kochim outside? So you're mamash, meaning if it wasn't for the fact that you were such a great person, we would have right away put you into nidui. Right? This, by the way, happens many times throughout the Gemara. I was just studying with my son, right? Ta'anit also, with Chonia Ma'agal, that they came and they told him, if it wasn't for the fact that you're a Choni, right, we would have also put you in Nidui, but you're Matriach et Rabecha, Baba Mimutza told him. Yeah, so the same thing. So Ela'ima, but rather you're right, Ke'en Kochi. It's not really Kochi. This is Stam. Everyone's having their own, no, it's like Ke'en Kochi, because it wasn't that they actually had a Korban Pesach there. But it was Ki'ilu, they were eating Kochi right outside. Says the Mishnah. Mishnah Kav Gimel Amud Aleph. Shlosha devarim Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah matir. There are three things Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was matir. Chachamim osrim, and Chachamim said it's going to be asur. Parato, the para of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, yotzea b'tzua sheminkanea, used to come out to the Reshut Rabim with a ritzua in between its horns. With how do you say ritzua? Like a, not a strip. I don't know, like a harness. Not a harness. It's a bit of a. But it's what? It was like a string, whatever you want to call it, okay? So he says over here, it's a be'emam yom tov, right? A ribbon, yeah? What is it called? A metal.
Sorry,
straps. That's what it is. So the straps between the horns. Umekardin et be'emam yom tov. They're allowed to come and they're going to comb with an iron comb, right? Which has very, very thin teeth. Right, that's what they say. Yeah, on the comb, on Yom Tov, the animal. Okay, to take it out from lice or things like that. Shochakin at the pipelim barechaim shalem. You're also allowed to crush pilpelim, right, with a mill. The Yudah says, you're not allowed to come and use this comb because you're going to do a chapura. You're going to cause a wound, right? A wound. Aval mekartzefim, but you're allowed to do it with teeth which are thicker. Chachamim say, you're not allowed to do either. Right, because it's not going to. That means even though it's not going to make a chabura, you're not allowed to do it. Not like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and not like Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Fine. Very good. The Gemara. So the Gemara says, "Lamimra." We wanted to say that Elazar ben Azariah chada para havyale. Are you going to tell me that according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, yeah, it only had one par? What does that mean? He only had one par, but the Mishnah says parato. Parato doesn't say the parot, his parot. Parato means his para. So it's much fun. You only had one. You only had one para? Yeah, parato. Para shelo. Yeah, kapara shelo. Yeah, para. Be'amar Rav says, Be'amri len, some people say Rav Yudah Rav. Slay saraf be'agla, have a ma'aser be'lazam nazayom, et koshtam shata. He had 12,000 agalot. Sorry, 13,000. Slay sar, right? 13,000 agalim. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah had to be mafrish maaser from his maaser be'ema every single year. So imagine how many one part, huh?
13,000 is the maaser.
So yeah, was just the maaser, Just the Maaser was 13,000. Yeah. Just the Maaser was 13,000. Yeah. So he says, exactly. So Tana, we learned in the Braita, Lo shelo haita, it wasn't his. Ela sheshechento haita, it was his neighbors. Mito shelo michaba, but the fact that he didn't make any rebuke, nikret hashemo, it's like his. Meaning, really, it wasn't his para. It was his neighbor's para. But the fact that he didn't rebuke his neighbor and he kept quiet, it's as if it is his para. Why? Because if you have something that you don't rebuke, it's on yours. It's on you. You're going to say, nah, I don't get involved. You don't get involved. It's on you. That's yours. Somebody could come and say, you did it. Oh, you did it. You didn't do it. No, it's like you did it. Okay? Fine. Says the Mishnah. That's the Musar for today. Okay? Yeah, and then they're going to come and they're going to be Mekardin the Behemah B'Yom Tov. Here we said Mekardin was combing it, but depends with which comb. So Tana Rabbanami learned in the Braita, Ezu Karud, Ezu Katu. What is Kirud? What is Kitzu? Kirud is Kitanim, small teeth, and therefore it makes a Chabura. Kirtzu for big ones, and it doesn't make a Chabura. There's three different deotinis. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Rabbi Yehuda holds, Davar she'eno mitkaven asur. Davar she'eno mitkaven is going to be asur. Mihu, nevertheless, Kirud, Kitanim osim Chabura. He says Kirud is going to be asur because it's very, very small and makes a Chabura. Kirtzuf is bigger, that doesn't make a Chabura. And we don't make a gezerah katzuf atu kirud. Meaning we don't make a gezerah with the thick ones because of the thin ones, which make a chabura. Rabbanan Sari, but the rabbis hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Davar she'mitkaven is going to be asur, and we do make a gezerah katzuf atu kirud. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds like Rabbi Shimon. He holds davar she'mitkaven is going to be mutar, and between whether it's going to be kirud and katzuf, it's always going to be mutar. Why? You don't have kavanah to make a chabura. Your kavanah is to take away the lights. Derech Agav, you're going to make the Chabura? Yeah, it's not Tzikresha. It's a Davar she'mitkaven. I don't have kavanah for it. Okay? Amar Rav Amar Nachman Meshmuel. It says Rav Nachman Meshmuel. The Amni Lan Zabi Yosef Rav Nachman lechutei. It was Rav Nachman himself without Shimon. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. The Davar she'mitkaven is going to be mutar. Sharer Elazar ben Azariah modelo. Elazar ben Azariah agrees with him. So if we pass it like right, Rabbi Shimon. Amale Rav Nachman asks Rava to Rav Nachman, so why don't you just say Alachaz like Rabbi Yehuda? Because Chachamim agreed to them. Meaning, why are you telling me the Alachaz like Rabbi Shimon? Because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah passed like Rabbi Shimon. Says Alachaz like Rabbi Yehuda because Chachamim go like Rabbi Yehuda. And so the Gemara, Amale, it says, Ana Shimon, I also like Rabbi Shimon. And furthermore, also because, meaning it's not because of anybody else. First of all, it's because I hold like Rabbi Shimon. That's number one. Number two, also Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agrees with Rabbi Shimon. So we pass like Rabbi Shimon. Kav Gimel Amud Bet, 23b. Okay? Harechaim shel pilpeli. We're talking about rechaim of pilpeli. It's going to be tmeah. Mishum shlosha kelim, because of three different utensils. Okay? Mekablim tuman. It's going to be mekabel tuman. Mishum klei kibul, because it has a receiving end. Number two, kli matechet, it's metal. Number three, klei kvara. It's like a sieve. So because of all three, it's going to be mekabel tuma. Says the Gemara, Tana tachtona is mishum klipul. The bottom one is a klikibul, right? The one on the bottom. The middle one is because of klikvar is the sieve, and the top one is because it's a klimatechet. Meaning each part of the rechaim of the mill has a different isur, and why is it going to be mekabel tuma? Next Mishnah, agala shel katan. We're talking about an agala of a child, about a stroller. Temea midras. It's going to be tamei midras. Intel b'Shabbat, but you're allowed to come and you're allowed to take it on Shabbat. It's not a problem. Ve'ena nigreret ela l'tabek kelim, but you could only take it on kelim, but not on the ground. Meaning you could only put it on top of like a utensil, but you can't put it on top of the ground. We're going to see why, right? Because basically when it goes, it makes like a furrow, a charitz. It makes like a furrow. It makes like it digs up the ground. So you're like boneh. No, all the other kelim you can't drag except for the agala, because the agala is koveshet. What is koveshet? If you ever pay attention, when you take even tires, right, of a car, right, the tires of a car, what it does is it doesn't pick up the ground, it puts pressure on the ground. It flattens it, it makes it inside. So that's koveshet. The same thing with agala. When you take an agala tinok and you start riding it, it's not picking up the ground, it's crushing the ground underneath it. So that's why it's going to be permitted. Says the Gemara, because you're leaning on it. The child is leaning on it, right? Meaning that since the human being is leaning on it when he's pushing the tile, so therefore it's going to be tameh midras. Shabbat, because it's a kli. It's got a kli. Right? It's not going to be nigret only on the top of kilim. Agabe kilim me'im, my tama what's using. It should be kavi charitz, which is making a charitz, which is like koresh. Okay? So says the Gemara, Mani, who is this? Yeah, he says over here, right? Who is this? He says it's a Yehuda. It's a Yehuda. The Amar, but he said the Rashi Mitkaven is going to be a Sur. The Ida Bishimon, but it's going to be the Bishimon. Hamad Rashi Mitkaven Mutar. He said the Rashi Mitkaven is going to be Mutar. The Tanya has learned to the Bright. The Bishimon Omer, Bishimon says, a person could come and drag a bed, table, or a chair, as long as you don't have kavanah, to make a charitz, to make this furrow. Let's say the Sefer. Rav Yehuda says, you cannot drag whatever you want on Shabbat, except for an agala. Only because it's koveshet, but it doesn't make a charitz. So don't tell me that lachazek Shimon davar shemitkaven is mutar, because it's only by the agala that it's mutar, but it's koveshet. It's not making charitz. But if it wouldn't make a charitz, it's going to be a sur. So answers the Gemara. Today Tanai leave with Rav Yehuda. No, it's two Tanaim in accordance to Rav Yehuda, which means also the Reish and also the Sefer of the Mishnah going like Rav Yehuda that the davar shemitkaven is a sur, but the Tanakama holds that it's a sur because of the Greidat Agala is because of charitz, and therefore it's going to be a sur. But the Tanavar Mishnah says it's koveshet. So it's going to be mutar, but it's all in Shittat of Yehuda that the Rosh Mitkaven is a sur. But if you all like Rabbi Shimon, the Rosh Mitkaven is mutar, it's always mutar to take the agala. There's no problem, even if it's going to make a charitz, because the Rosh Mitkaven. Hadran alach Yom Tov. Says the next Mishnah. We finished the second chapter. Now we're starting the third chapter. Perek Shlishi. En tzadim dagim min habevarim Yom Tov. Remind me to show you the picture from the Mishnayot tomorrow. Okay, we have the Mishnayot upstairs with the picture. Remind me for this and also the previous one of the sieve and the mill and all those things. It says over here you're not allowed to trap fish from the bevarim on Yom Tov. Bevarim used to be, they used to make like a smaller swimming pool where all the fish were inside. So it wasn't part of the sea. It used to come it's like a swimming pool. Mamash, just a fish. They have it in English. They call it when they have the fish that it's not from the sea. What do they call it? They call it fish. No, but they call it a special word in English. That means these fish are not farming, no, like something like farming, some of that. There's like a word in English that said that means it's like farm fish. What is a farm? They have a farm for fish. It doesn't exist. Kavanah that it's in like a pool. You understand? Like they grow in a pool. They don't grow in the wild. You understand? It's a completely different taste. You know, it's not the same. It's not the freshness. It's not the same. So it says here, and tzaddik dagim yom tov. You're not allowed to give them mizonot either. But you are allowed to capture wild animals and birds, right, from these bevarim, okay, that they're going to be covered together, and you are allowed to give them mizonot, right? We have to understand why. Rashbag says, you can't compare all of these swimming pools or all of these areas, right? Why? Because it all depends on the size. So he says, this is the general rule. Kol, 24:1 on the top. Anything which is already lacking trapping, you're not allowed to trap it on Yom Tov. But if it's not lacking trapping, it's going to be mutar on Yom Tov, which means, is it already considered trapped or not? If it's already considered trapped, so you didn't do anything if you already trapped. But you trapped something that was already trapped. But if it wasn't considered trapped and now you trap it, you're not allowed to trap on Yom Tov. So that's going to be a sur, and we continue with Hashem tomorrow.